Afternoon. Welcome and thank you for joining us today for our October Cybersecurity Awareness Month webinar on the dark web and darknet. Should be a very interesting topic. We have some dynamic speakers today that we're very excited to bring to you. But first, I want to take a minute and introduce myself and the mission of SCTECH, and then I'll pass it along to my colleague, Suzanne Dickerson at the South Carolina Fraunhofer USA Alliance. SCTECH and its program Focus Cybersecure SC are initiatives of the South Carolina Council on Competitiveness. We're a business-led nonprofit, and we support industry clusters within South Carolina. Our focus at SCTECH and CyberSec SC are to bring a unified voice to the technology industry. We create programs and partnerships with industry, government, education, and other support organizations around the state. SC Competes has other business clusters, including SC Aerospace, SC Logistics, Transform SC, and Fraunhofer USA, who is bringing us our speakers today. If you're interested in learning more about the programs that we offer or becoming a partner, please reach out to me. Also, make sure to sign up for our episode 2 of our Technology Workforce webinar, which is next Thursday afternoon at 1, where we'll be talking about diversity and inclusion in technology, and we have a fantastic panel of speakers for that as well. And now I'm going to pass it over to Suzanne so she can talk a little bit about the South Carolina Fraunhofer USA Alliance and introduce our wonderful speakers. Again, thanks everyone for being here.
Thank you, Kim. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon to our friends in Germany. So the South Carolina Fraunhofer USA Alliance is, I guess, the second newest initiative that the SC Competes team has been managing. We do this in collaboration with the Department of Commerce, and specifically, the Department of Commerce has made generous funding available for entities in South Carolina who would like to collaborate in teams that include Fraunhofer expertise and South Carolina academic institutions to work on practical problems. So this is not a theoretical research program. This is a very applied research program. Just like Kim said, if you're interested in finding out more about this, Marcel Schäfer and I are the people on the ground here who are managing this program, and we would love to talk to you about that. But just a little bit of introduction to Fraunhofer and this topic today. So we have been managing this program for about 2 years. And in that process, we've of course been trying to confirm, validate, and measure demand for certain capabilities and technical expertise that exist within the Fraunhofer network. That is no small task, I'll be honest with you, because Fraunhofer globally has more than 70 institutes and centers and more than 30,000 researchers, scientists, and experts on staff. So what we've decided to do is these monthly webinars where we will be presenting various capabilities and technical expertise to you, South Carolina audience, and we will be measuring and gauging your demand in these areas. So thank you all for being with us this morning. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Marcel Schäfer, who is the dedicated South Carolina Fraunhofer representative on the ground here, and is helping us to expand and grow this program. Marcel?
Yeah, hello everybody. Good morning also on my end. As I mentioned, happy to be here, happy to introduce or kick off this webinar special. I call it a special because contrary to the other ones, we not only have one presentation but two. And for this time, I'm not only the moderator and the one asking the nasty questions, but I'm also a speaker. So, and I have the pleasure to introduce our other speaker, which is Professor Dr. Martin Steinbach. Very special pleasure because Martin's probably the one that I've worked with for the longest period of time. Dr. Steinbach leads the Media Security and IT Forensics Division of Fraunhofer SIT since 2003. Fraunhofer SIT stands for Secure Information Technologies. so the Fraunhofer Center that's all about cybersecurity. When I joined in 2009, that division, as a student, as a very young man, he was already the lead. I stayed as an intern and left then 2019 before coming here and joining Fraunhofer USA. Getting back to Martin, he received his PhD in 2003 as well at the Technical University of Darmstadt in 2016. He is titled Honorary Professor at Technical University of Darmstadt. He's PI on many big volume programs around his research topics. I'm not going to mention all of them, that's probably too much. Some of the research topics are digital watermarking, big data. He got prizes for his work in robust hashing for the detection of child porn. He did many projects in the area of civil security and around social media monitoring. For example, these are fields where you have projects that are about detecting fake news, which is a very pressing topic in Germany as well as in the United States. And you also might have heard some of the works in the news. For example, last year, some of you might remember, there was a video that appeared showing former Vice Chancellor of Austria and some corrupt tendencies within that video. Of course, the Austrian government claimed that this was fake, and so Martin and his group got the task to validate if that was correct or not. The outcome is history. The Austrian government coalition collapsed. Involved people of the government resigned. All the new elections were announced, and the lawsuit is still progressing. And I saw just an article yesterday that it's a big thing. So he did many things. I'm not going to go over this. Over 170 publications in his research topics, and I was probably part of 20 of them. So Martin was my boss for exactly 10 years at Fraunhofer SIT. He was one of the supervisors of my PhD. He's a friend. He's always been a big mentor and supporter throughout my career. And enough of the one words now. Let's kick off.
Thank you, nonetheless.
Let's kick off the presentations. Keep in mind, stay muted. Remember your questions or jot them in the chat, and we'll get to those questions afterwards. And I guess we can now start. So I will give a brief overview of the DARKNET. Martin will get into the weeds afterwards, and now we can start off with a short video.
Look, DOT to purchase legit bank logs and Cash App logs with Bitcoin and cash out easily. Each logs comes with a free cash out method. Visit slope.to and thank me later. Step 1. Visit slope.to. 2. Register an account with a username. Then log in. 3. You can explore and see the bank logs and Cash App logs we sell. When you're ready to purchase, tap on Add Funds.
So this was what you've seen here was a marketing video for an onion service or darknet marketplace that is now shared throughout the dark web. I think it's very interesting how legitimate this video comes along, doing advertisement for illegal markets, like selling digital commodities, including stolen login credentials, online bank accounts, online payments, and mobile phone accounts, and so on. I'm not going into detail here. It was found by the evidence-based research group of Georgia State University, led by Professor David Mammon. Thank you for allowing me to share this. Could be that this marketplace has already been seized. But again, now I'm going to. I thought this was a nice introduction into the topic. So whatever you find, of course, it's meant for people. So it looks very similar to what you would expect in the normal web. And let me now share my presentation. Can you see this slide?
Yep. Yes.
Yep.
Wonderful. So, what is a darknet? A short recipe. An ideal darknet is an information technology infrastructure that simultaneously allows achieving the following purposes. So, what are the ingredients for something being a darknet? The first one, circumventing intentional access blockades, like censorship. A darknet prevents blocking or disrupting and manipulating communications of any kind. So first ingredient, no censorship. Whatever you communicate, this should be not tampered with. The second ingredient, of course, assuring technical anonymity of its users. So no censorship and anonymity, so whatever you post, whatever you write, you communicate, you stay anonymous and nobody can actually manipulate what you say. That's very important, two things. With the third ingredient, it's a cake, assuring technical anonymity of the services. So it's not only you browsing the darknet being anonymous, but also the website they're browsing on can offer the services anonymously. So these three ingredients then make a darknet. And now very brief about differences of the terms and definitions. So what the internet, I'm not going to explain what the internet is. Then there's the web, the big part of the internet, the www, the websites, and then there is the deep web, which is, everybody has probably heard of, a deep, nebulous part of the web. And then you probably expect the darknet somewhere in between there. But first let's look at the definition. What is a deep web? A deep web is something that cannot be found by search engines. Search engines cannot find it, cannot index it, and therefore it's called deep web. This is nothing evil or bad. This is just like company websites, libraries, something that you just can't access without, for example, any credentials or so. And then there's the dark web and the darknet. The darknet is not solely, in my opinion, not solely a part of the deep web. It is an overlay network. It's only accessible with specific software, for example, the Tor network. I'm going to do that later. But it's not just a part of the deep web. It's something else. The reason for that is actually pretty simple. So in the darknet, you have search engines. So it cannot be part of the deep web. So that's one of the big distinctions here. There are search engines on the dark web. Everything that we've heard of, everybody that talks about darknet, he or she is probably talking about the Tor network. But first of all, Tor is two things. It's a browser to anonymously serve the web. So it's just a browser. It's just like Firefox. It actually is some kind of Firefox or Chrome, and you can just surf the web, surf any website you want. But here the thing is, you can stay anonymous. The other thing is the Tor browser allows you to access darknet marketplaces. So that's what it differentiates from others. You can access websites that we then call the darknet, the Tor network. And from now on, and I guess also my colleague Martin Steinbach will only talk about what we found in the Tor network. So that's the big prominent example. Yeah. So the darknet, as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm not sure I mentioned it, I want to classify or differentiate a little bit between the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good thing is, of course, the things we want. The bad is something that is illegal in at least most Western countries, and the ugly is something below, even more illegal and evil. But let's start with the good. The darknet enables uncensored and untraced freedom of speech. So if you have these three ingredients I was talking about earlier, if you can stay anonymously, if the recipient is anonymous as well, or the servers, and if nobody kind of tampers with what you are talking about, you can speak freely. So freedom of speech, one very important good thing of the darknet, in a sense. And then the second bullet point, the darknet allows journalists to do their job in places where they are opposed to repression, e.g. by government, by organizations, whatever. And that's a very important point. Of course, the journalists want to do their job. If they can't do it because they are kind of cut out from any information source, or if they can't just have a tool that allows them to share their information without them having fear of their life, then they can't do their job correctly. So that's a very important point. Tor allows them to Tor's the tool for them to actually do this job all over the world. Third bullet point. In repressive regimes, the darknet allows access to news and social media websites that are otherwise banned. For example, New York Times, Washington Post, Facebook, and so on, they all have their appearance in the darknet. What you see here is a screenshot that I took last Friday from the New York Times. So this is an appearance in the darknet. This screenshot is from the darknet. Fun fact, there are social media, social networks in the darknet that are only for the darknet, but that's all another story. So many news sites, many just legal, normal websites have an appearance in the darknet. The fourth bullet point, something that you probably wouldn't expect, handyman services or some psychological support. I mean, I guess that makes sense for those who don't dare to post something openly. In the darknet, they are anonymous. They can post and maybe get feedback. The fifth bullet point, the US government, or the Naval Research Lab in the early 90s, invented Tor. So they invented Tor as a means to communicate behind borders. So for the troops to have a tool to communicate with each other, to know that that this information that they are just posting or receiving has not been tampered with, and that nobody can actually cut them off or find them or identify them. This is a very important thing, of course, and the whole thing was then spread to the whole world so everybody can use it. So because the more people use the Tor network, the higher the level of anonymity. These are the good things. Going to the bad things. Of course, the obvious, what everybody has thought about already. There are marketplaces, drug marketplaces, where you can buy all kinds of drugs or illegal medicine or general medicine where you would need a doctor's permit for or something like that. And these marketplaces look pretty familiar to those who have ever bought something on Amazon, for example. You have a shopping cart, you have a recommendation system saying, okay, this vendor is not that trustworthy, or the stuff was very good. So it looks very much as you would expect a regular marketplace, and you can buy these things and you pay then with Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. And of course, there's also these things like forums for hacking credit cards, selling credit cards, and all these services that Martin will go a little bit more into detail later. For example, also service offerings for social media hacks. That's what you find there, that's what you can buy. You can also buy some exploits where you can build this yourself, or you can try to hack others yourself. All these services, that is of course what you find on the darknet. And because we're 20 months in the pandemic, of course, what you also can find is vaccination cards or negative COVID-19 tests. When there is a demand, there is a market. And so much about the illegal pieces of the darknet. Then there's what I just called the ugly, which is different things. For example, red rooms. To those who have not heard about red rooms, these are rooms where typically you can enter these rooms on a video conference, and you see a scene where there's one or more victims, one or more torturers, and you actually see the torturer torture the victim. You can interact with the torturer, saying, hey, I want you to do this or that to the victim, and eventually have the victim killed this way. So the human mind is very dark, or can be very dark. It has to be proven that these rooms really exist for several reasons, but I'm not going into detail here now. Then what definitely exists is terrorism and extremism. So ISIS was famous for recruiting fighters through the darknet, or asking for donations. The right radicals also use the darknet. You find Nazi stuff in there, and all those. Pretty much all criminal organizations you can think of, typically they can organize through the dark web. But there's also other stuff, something like just a website where you can post whatever you think of. Maybe nonsense, maybe something very interesting, maybe something that you shouldn't post, maybe something that you don't want to post, whatever. It's just, you can just post it, you're anonymous, nobody will say anything about it against you personally. So why not share something you found? For example, FBI database emails and passwords. So this goes back to a hack that was 3 years ago or so. But yes, if you don't want to sell it because you fear for they get you, you just post it, and you shouldn't be in too much trouble. And of course, the obvious, Hitman services or solution services. So when you have a problem with a neighbor, whatever, here this offers to wreck a life in this way or the other way, depending on what you want the hitman to do, different prices of course, and to solve your problem in whatever way. I'm pretty sure that this website is a scam, but there might be real ones. And that ends my presentation. That worked very well with Microsoft PowerPoint, and I'm going to stop sharing now and hand it over to Martin. Please don't shock them too much.
No. I'm the one who brings light in the darkness, not the other way around. So I try to do this really, really nice. Okay. So you should have my presentation now, and
Yep, we can see it.
Perfect. And in a few seconds, we'll say if we can also navigate through it. So I will tell you a little bit about DARKNET intelligence. DARKNET intelligence is about accessing the data in a way that you can retrieve relevant information for yourself. So it's using the DARKNET as a source of information, a source of intelligence, similar to open source intelligence. And it's open for discussion if DARKNET is open source or not. So in many aspects it is open source, and other it isn't. So I try to skip. And did you get another slide?
Yes.
Perfect. So my Microsoft beats Marcel's Microsoft. So what I'm going to discuss briefly here is what can you retrieve from the DARKNET, how can you access this information, risks and challenges, and then something about what we could offer you, so the services provided by Fraunhofer. And I would say when we come to the information available in the DARKNET, for companies, I guess one of the most important things is that DARKNET hidden services, so the server part of the DARKNET, is quite often used to store, to make available leaks, huge leaks from hacking rates. So you can sometimes find gigabyte or terabyte of data stolen from company servers, and it will remain there for some time because it's really hard to identify the servers and to take them down. So compared to the ClearNet, where you can retrieve an IP address, and when the regulations of the country allow it, then you can basically take down the server. And the DARKNET, it's almost impossible. So you can look out for leaks, and you can look at the leaks and find out what is the content of such a leak. Because for a company, it's always important when there's a leak, but it's always or also very important what is the actual content. Is it user data? Is it account data? Is it source code? Is it some strategic data, patterns in the making, and so on? Identity theft is also quite popular in the DARKNET. So you can buy stolen personal data in bulk. You can find passwords, be it combinations of passwords and email addresses, or combinations of identities and passwords. So you can really digitally counterfeit complete existence. You can also find services and tools. So Marcel, in his Good, Bad, and Ugly, addressed a lot of services in the ugly parts that are, well, it's hard to tell if they are actually available or not. But when it comes to, for example, hacking as a service, then this is really, really likely that it's available. You always can come to a scammer, but there are enough examples that people ordered a hacking attack via DARKNET, paid for it, and were able to witness the actual attack. So in research, people really did this as a research experiment, paying hackers for attacking a server that they have been running and then analyzing if the attack actually happens. So for a company, it's interesting to learn about that because you can use this for finding out how vulnerable your infrastructure is against attacks. Somebody orders, somebody buys as a service, because those hackers will usually tell you what they can do and what they cannot do, if they are experts for specific infrastructures. So you can learn how likely it is for you to be attacked, how good the tool set of attackers are, and to a certain extent also how expensive this is for somebody who wants to attack you. And also of interest can be discussions. So opinions on a company, about a company in a forum can be of interest, because really companies with a bad reputation could be a more likely attack of attacks than companies that are generally ignored, or where the opinion in the darknet is more positive about. And you also can learn about cyber attacks, but also about small-scale terrorism attacks like bombings or destruction of property, which is, due to the limited censorship in the darknet, quite likely that it will remain there, and you can read about it. So, for example, in the darknet, you still can find reports from autonomous groups that attacked Fraunhofer institutes because they didn't like the research we did execute on certain topics. So this information is in the darknet, and it's quite persistent there. So how do you access this information? You can either do the manual approach, which means that you use a Tor browser that you can install. Tor is free, Tor is quite easy to install. The challenge will be that you need a starting address. So search capabilities in the darknet are quite limited. You don't have an equivalent of Google. To a certain amount, there are smaller search engines, but this will be a challenge. You can use wikis, hidden wikis, all that stuff. There are a number of things that can be used as a starting point, but really just typing in your company name and hacking or attack or whatever won't be helpful, I guess. So the alternative is the automated approach. Then you need a darknet crawler that tries to do what a search engine also does, running through the darknet, retrieving information, storing information, and allowing it to be searched locally. So this is what we basically do. We do crawlers. We develop different strategies to get hold of darknet addresses, of onion addresses, be it by eavesdropping within the Tor traffic, or be it by parsing websites, and then we download, cleanse, and store stuff. So these general two approaches are possible. So what are the risks of darknet access? I added this slide because a lot of people tend to be afraid about going in the darknet because they think this could be illegal, or I'm quite close to very illegal stuff. I wouldn't be so pessimistic here. So in the darknet, you have a high risk of scamming and phishing. So a lot of fake gun stores, fake service offers. Basically, whenever you do some prepaid business in the darknet and you pay with Bitcoins, then it's quite likely that your money will disappear. It will disappear especially in things like these fake services and fake gun stores. Drug shops, for example, have a much better reputation than gun stores on the darknet because it seems to be much more easy to provide sufficient amount of drugs, and recurring customers are more likely. So it is profitable for somebody to run a store that builds up a good reputation. So whenever you pay in the darknet, you need to be aware you will not be able to get your money back. There's no payment revocation when you transfer your Bitcoins. It's usually gone. Of course, there are some services that allow you to upload and your money and then just wait until you have gotten your service, and then only then the money is actually transferred to the other party. But also these services have been prone to scamming quite some time. So basically, it's hard to trust somebody here. So when you download software from the darknet, you have to be as careful as you have to be from whichever cracking site, download site you are in the ClearNet, because the downloaded software, of course, has the potential of containing malware. So when you want to download a hacking tool or whatever because you find it interesting to use hacker tools, there is a certain risk that the hackers actually will use these tools as Trojan horses to your computer. So I would be careful here, and if you really download stuff, use a lot of virus scanning before you really run the stuff. So what we didn't experience so far is something that is claimed quite often, that whenever you enter the darknet, you are basically flooded with unwanted child porn. So these child porn rings that have been busted recently, they usually didn't advertise to everybody. These seem to be close circles of people that actually know what they want, and they know the addresses, and they have rituals of including new members into their ranks. So it's not like you will access child porn easily in the darknet. It's more likely that you will come across sort of advertising for child porn site, and I can't tell if this advertising really leads to true child porn or it's just another scam. So the risks are rather in being scammed and not really in doing something illegal by just entering the darknet. What are the challenges? So finding the relevant darknet address is really one big challenge, and it's hard to tell one address from the other because in the darknet, the services usually have cryptic names, so it's not like you have address like Fraunhofer.de for the Fraunhofer organization, but you would have something like FHG and then 20 characters .onion, and scammer would also create a website or an onion service that also is called FHG, and then another sequence of 20 random characters. So it's really hard to distinguish those addresses from each other. So of course, pointers from the ClearNet or DARKNET wikis can be helpful, but wikis are easily editable by everybody. So what prevents somebody from replacing a legit website with a scamming website when it's in wiki? So the other thing is, of course, that when you do DARKNET access in an automated manner, then you will have to deal with captcha. So the DARKNET isn't really fond of being scanned and cataloged. So you have to build mechanisms to access web pages that are beyond captcha walls. And something that is of interest is that services tend to be online only for a short time. So of course there are those huge drug markets that are there for months or maybe even years. But smaller services of special interest topics, they tend to come and go. So building up a list of addresses that you go to at another time can be a little bit tiring, because so often the online services will not be available anymore. That's why downloading and persisting is so important if you really want to rely on the information that is available there. So what do we offer? We offer a DARKNET archive that basically allows to access the content that we have downloaded, including a time machine, being able to see how websites changed over time and when did they come, where did they go. It's a text-only thing right now, so we don't download images and all the other stuff because we don't want to access illegal content here. We, of course, also can provide the DARKNET crawling infrastructure, the framework. So when a company needs to access specific domains or specific content in the DARKNET and has recurring tasks here, this frameworks that we developed for building up the DARKNET archive can also be tailored individually for specific needs, and then you can run on your own local servers DARKNET parsing mechanisms. And what we can also do is help by parsing leaks, because when you have a leak, that is basically a set of a lot of data packages with terabyte of data. If you don't have big data handling capabilities, you will have a hard time to really search for individual information relevant for you. And with specific programming tools, you can do this quite easily, and we have a lot of experience here. And what we also do is we offer DARKNET courses. So we have a Fraunhofer Academy that basically offers quite a lot of different schooling for adults on different topics Fraunhofer is all about. So in the DARKNET course, you'll learn about the basics of the Tor network, content in the DARKNET, and but also about the technology behind. You will have live experience, live demos, how to go in the darkness, how to navigate there. And we also have content about legal aspects, legal perspectives of the darknet and using the darknet, and also a course about cryptocurrencies and how they work. And if this isn't sufficient, we can add other topics, other courses about forensics, embedded security, open source intelligence. So there's quite a lot of content that we have developed in Fraunhofer for courses. And this is it. And I'm sorry, I'm 3 minutes over time, but I'm happy to answer questions. Thank you.
There's no excuse for that.
Okay.
Thank you, Martin. So I tried to shock a little bit, and Martin put us back to the ground. And now the stage, the floor is open for whatever questions you might have. We're not going to explain exactly step by step how you get to a specific website, but we may answer all of the other questions.
I'll start with a question, Martin. The courses that you talked about, can those be delivered online, or are they already delivered online?
Yeah, so we during Corona we switched from on-premise courses to online courses, and we also spend a lot of effort in being able to provide some exercises also online. So yes, we would need to translate because it's a German thing right now, but all the rest is no problem.
Okay, thank you. Other questions?
I'll throw a question in as well. As we start to become more protective over our personal data, and we know that our data is a commodity in the marketplace, do we think that there will be a movement to utilizing private browsing and resources like what the DARKNET has available in order to protect that personal data from monetary gain on someone else's part?
So the DARKNET right now is already used by a lot of people for this. So what is important with respect to the DARKNET is that you can use the Tor browser for anonymous browsing of the ClearNet. Then it's basically just a sort of an obfuscation framework. You go through the DARKNET, but you come out at the clear web, and nobody is able to trace your IP address, for example. So this is used by a lot of people, and the Tor project also claims that this is by far the most typical usage of the Tor browser. And all this really illegal stuff, but also all the stuff that is censorship free, that is the things that are done within the DARKNET. So when you have an .onion address, you are in the TorNet, in the DARKNET, or the content is in part of the dark web. But when you go to the standard HTML address with a DNS name, then you only use the Tor browser to protect your privacy.
And can you explain a little bit more about how using an Onion browser actually does protect your anonymity? You protect sorry,
my privacy.
I can't say the word. But
yeah, sure. So it's basically it's a cryptographic protocol. So whenever you use a Tor browser to access a web access, you basically send a layered encrypted envelope to this web address, and the Tor network uses 3 computers to hide your IP address. So you send an encrypted request to one Tor node, and he will decrypt and send the rest to the next Tor node. And that Tor node then doesn't know your IP address. It only knows the address or the contact information of this first Tor node, and then the second Tor node sends to the third Tor node, and then addresses the ClearNet address. And by this, you basically have 3 obfuscation point that removes your IP address from the access point of the ClearNet. So this is really in a brief manner how the protection runs. It's a layered cryptographic protocol.
And that's why it's called onion services, because it has different layers of protection, like an onion that you just peel apart. I want to add something about the Tor browser. So I have, for example, used the Tor browser to access website that when I'm using Tor, I get different results other than when I'm using just my regular Chrome or so. Because sometimes the websites give a little different content, whatever you have, whatever you're searching on. For example, I use it for flights, finding the best flight or the cheapest. So it was told that, for example, if you're using a Mac, it might show a different, a higher price than if you're using just another kind of laptop or something like that. So using the Tor browser just prevents the other side from knowing who you are and who you're browsing with. And we have a question.
We do have a question, yeah. So as part of the good part of the DARKNET, how are voices heard if we don't use it? Is this where reporters quote anonymous sources in the light web?
So I mentioned the news sites that have their appearance in the DARKNET. They also have kind of post boxes, drop-off boxes there. So reporters can simply drop off the information there, and it's looked after regularly. So what I found earlier was, I don't remember which news site it was, but the reporter said, or the agent from the news site says, like, every other day there's something really important that we then make a story out of, or something that we then that makes it into the news. So it is used regularly and hopefully oftenly.
Right, for also things like whistleblowers, right, that use this resource in order to show information that otherwise they would be penalized for if they were identifying themselves, right?
Exactly. Like everybody who wants to post something and stay anonymous, that's the place to go to.
But also, always as a reminder here is so the Tor network is of course only able to protect the privacy of your IP address. So when you upload a Word document that has the author name and so within it, which is something that happens quite a lot, be it Word, be it PDF, of course Tor doesn't protect you from this. So just always try to be really aware what you're doing and double check if it's really private. So yeah. Tor is not like a filter that removes all personal data. It's really just an IP obfuscator.
Yeah, don't end it with, hope you can help me. Best regards, Marcel Schäfer. That's probably not a good idea. In any case, don't use that name.
We have another question. So how do we know the information isn't misinformation then? And Martin, I think you've done some work on this, right? Identifying misinformation from true information.
Yes, of course. So when it really comes to general information, you should do whatever a journalist usually does, for example. So check if there's additional evidence. So when you come to a whistleblower, of course, a whistleblower can upload anything, but this shouldn't be the base of your report as a journalist. This should be the starting point of your investigation. And usually when you have whistleblower information, then you are able to probe the subject of this leak and based on the reaction of the subject, you will learn a lot about if this information is true or not. So I would really say technology cannot help you here. This is something that is basically just a tool for having a good starting point. And from that on, you have to do your basic trade.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Maybe adding to that, so like, how do you find people in the dark web, or how do you seize these things? I mean, most of that is, as with a journalist, that just do journalist work as they did before, whether or not like DARKNET's only a tool to support that. Same holds for police work. So they still have to do their police job, investigating and looking for the actual person behind. This is just a tool that has been used, but the regular police work is still necessary.
Great, thank you. We have our contact information on the screen. Please reach out. And Suzanne, I'll let you close us out. Thank you, Marcel and Martin, for being with us today. This was very informative.
Okay.
Thank you all. Sorry for the Microsoft mismatch, PowerPoint mismatch.
We have a last question here. I don't know if you want to take time.
Oh.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Why can't the IP be traced?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, Martin.
Okay, so I can try, Marcel can try. So the IP cannot be traced because the IP isn't used for the communication between the different layers. So you have your IP that your IP is used for step one, for the step from you to the first Tor node. And from then on, the IP isn't available to the second and the third, and of course to the server as a third node addresses. So when it comes to accessing the ClearNet or also the DARKNET address, you are only able to retrieve the IP from the third node, from the exit node that uses is basically your proxy. And of course, when somebody would be able to modify the Tor network and has a background service that transfers the IP address with every request, hides it somewhere in the stream, in the protocol, then the IP address would be available. So an implementation mistake would negate the privacy protection. But so far, this isn't known. And so the protocol itself is the current guarantee for not transmitting the IP address. So. Sorry for.
And then there's a follow-up question, just real quickly. If I send money somewhere, why can't law enforcement know where it's going?
Yeah, because this money is usually also moved via IP address, via DARKNET addresses, and then there are a lot of services that try to make it even harder to follow that money. So of course, the money or the transfer itself is shown in when you use Bitcoin in the Bitcoin blockchain, so you can follow that. But at some point, you have a wallet one that moves money into a mixing service, and the mixing service then throws the money out to other wallets that don't have the same ID but are owned by the same person. And to connect this, that's then really hard. And so following money over mixing circuits is quite a challenge. Usually you are rather lucky, or when you are able to trace money. And what police most often does is simply checking if there's a lot of money appearing somewhere out of nothing, and because most often you want cash or local currency and no bitcoins for buying stuff, for buying, for example, a house in cash in Germany. In Germany, it's possible to buy a house in cash. So when you want to do money laundering and so on, then you want cash. And moving Bitcoin to cash is something you can do at a bank, but that's usually raises alarm here, and then police can interact, but usually not in the money movement in the blockchain.
Okay.
So this is a very briefly explained, a very technologically sophisticated topic by itself, like Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, and of course the Tor browser. How does it work? Well, that would probably blow the frame here.
Yeah. Yeah.
But great questions. Thank you.
So it's fascinating. Thank you to both of you, Martin and Marcel, for the overview. If anyone in the audience would like more information, either on CyberSec, SCTECH, or the South Carolina Fraunhofer USA Alliance related to the courses that are offered online or any of the solutions, please follow up with us. Thank you for your time this morning. Have a great day.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.